I Heart by Daniel Johnson. Copyright 2020 by Renaissance. The lake was surrounded by a landscape of emerald green grass that spread out like the cover of some gigantic bed. Its short blades of grass were slightly fluttering in the breeze. Next to the lake, on a small promontory, there was a small cluster of rocks and a large oak tree whose boughs reached over towards the lake. Under the shade of the tree, a slender woman in a bright white dress sat down on a tartan blanket. The folds of her dress billowed out around her. She sat poised and occasionally moving, like a flower, animated by the breeze. Next to her, at a respectful distance, sat a tall gentleman, splendid in his gray frock coat. His black top hat sat next to him, resting on his gloves. The woman was radiant, both in visage and in demeanor. This moment was perfect, she thought.
I must say, I was a little amused when I saw that look on Lady Chelmsford's visage as she walked into the room.
Quite. I don't think she was ready then for a visitation from the grave,
She says with a smile. Well, I do believe it may have done her some good.
Good? How so, Mr. Watts?
Well, I hear a little shock from time to time is good for the heart. It builds the constitution.
Andre, you're horrible.
Well, that may be so, but only towards horrible people.
Andre, now you're just being ghastly.
They both laugh.
Elizabeth looked out at the lake. A small group of swans moved about near the shore. The air was pleasant and the day was perfect. Andre was beyond any dream she had ever known. She waited so long for this moment, and now it was here. Everything was perfect, but hidden somewhere in the folds, it was there. A slight incongruity. She looked at Andre's perfect face, and then up to the blue sky. Not one cloud as they sat in the cool shade of a large oak. Perfect. But there it was again. Like a small pebble in her shoe. A grain of sand in her parfait. She could not shake it. Susan had spoiled the whole thing. Beth tried to push the thought away, but it always came back. Finally, she could not take it anymore.
Andre, where are you from?
Andre puzzles for a moment. Elizabeth, I believe I told you many times. I'm from London.
Yes, but I mean, where are you really from?
Andre looked at her searching, trying to figure out if there was some symbolic meaning to her questions.
I am from London.
Elizabeth looked at him disappointed.
Elizabeth, surely you don't question my honesty. I love you with all my heart, and I would not want to do anything to disappoint you. Tell me what I need to do to convince you, my dearest, of my complete honesty and sincerity. He leans forward and takes her hand. I am who I am. I am who you see.
She looked at him in the eyes.
No, I mean outside of the game.
She said, her normal voice a little lower.
Who are you really?
She leaned a little closer and continued to talk in her Bethany voice.
It's okay. I mean, you're great. Better than any girl can ever hope for. Better than I could ever hope for. I love you and I love your role. I love myself and everything around this place. That will never go away no matter who you really are.
Andre slowly looked away and then down. His hand relaxed in hers and slowly slid out. Beth quickly reached out and took it. She now switched back to the Elizabeth voice.
Dearest love, I am terribly sorry. I too love you like the blood that beats in my own heart.
He slowly looked up at her, his eyes glistening a little.
You are the blood in my veins, dearest love.
She raised his hand and placed it against her cheek.
You are my whole reason for being. You are my life, and I want to be with you for all eternity.
Oh, dearest Elizabeth, I don't know why you test me so, but seeing you smile the way that you do now makes every pain worthwhile. I would suffer whatever torment hell and the devil had to offer for an eternity just to gaze into your eyes for one moment the way I am now.
They stared deeply into each other's eyes and slowly began to move closer. Their eyes moving back and forth between lips and eyes, they continued to cautiously move closer. As their eyes closed, their mouths slightly opened. They were close now, so close Elizabeth could feel the warmth of his body. She waited in anticipation. She opened her eyes as he pulled away abruptly.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I don't know what came over me.
Beth looked at him disappointed and confused.
I fear I've put you in a compromising position. I am terribly sorry. He moves away a foot or more. It's just that your beauty is so much more than my self-control can bear at times.
Beth was a little irritated. What will it take for this guy to kiss me? She thought. Then the irritation sprung back up.
Look, it's okay. I'm not going to run away from this just because you were fat and ugly in the real world.
Andre looked at her confused and hurt.
Didn't mean to say you're fat and ugly in the real world. For all I know, you may be a dreamboat. All I'm saying is that I don't care. I mean, I would love you no matter who you are.
Andre's eyes were darting now, looking everywhere and not knowing what to do. A loud voice now sounded in her head. You are performing a serious breach of protocol. Please adhere to the parameters of your game character. These games were set up with certain rules of involvement that players needed to follow in order not to erode the experience for others. Please follow the parameters laid out in your character profile while in the game, the voice in her head continued. You have been listening to I Heart You by Daniel Johnson. Copyright 2020 by Renaissance Productions. For this and other writings, go to genesis2112.com or search Sue Lee Daniel Johnson on Kindle, iBooks, or Barnes & Noble.